I wanted to do a little video about my experience with the church. And anyways, I was born in what I call an end times church. They called themselves non-denominational, but what they did was they didn't teach the Trinity. They taught that heaven was here on earth, and they did recognize hell, I think, is a place you went after death, but I don't really remember that part. We didn't talk about Jesus a lot. We did talk about Jesus, but it wasn't all about Jesus at that church. It was called the Worldwide Church of God. And anyways, we celebrated things like the Feast of Tabernacles, and I did not celebrate Easter. I did not celebrate Christmas. We did Passover and Day of Atonement and things of this nature. I didn't eat pork. The Sabbath was on Saturday. We weren't supposed to watch TV or do anything, I guess, starting at sundown on Friday night until sundown on Saturday night. My dad was cool. He watched TV. Anyone knows my dad knows he was definitely watching TV. But he also played golf on the Sabbath, of course. He wasn't too dumb about it. We did do the no pork thing. But my grandma and people like that they did all those rules perfectly. And both my parents were born in this church, by the way. My parents were pretty much born and raised in it. And then, so my entire family went to this church, mom's side and my dad's side. And we used to meet for the feast every year in a different location spot, like Florida or Vail or Arizona or Hot Springs or whatever. And we went to church for the whole week, and I got to miss school, and we got gifts, and it was really a lot of fun. But anyways, all of it was completely unnecessary, knowing what I know now. But when I was about 12, the church started teaching things like that you could do Christmas if you wanted to, kind of thing. Okay. Well, that started stirring up the church and kind of splitting it off and all this stuff. Anyways, my dad took it as an opportunity to just completely quit going to church altogether, because I think he had been wanting to do that for quite some time, but that was his out, and he never went back to church. Same with my mother. She never went back to church after she left that church. Some other family members carry on the church, and they still do it now. And then some just started going to different churches. Okay, so we quit church, and we just start living life like we always had, really. My dad's always been good about that, but we just did whatever we wanted. Neither one of my parents ever talked about religion, really, or forced any sort of idea down my throat. My mom always talks about God and all this stuff. My dad doesn't talk about God and things like that. And my dad's always taught me to be self-disciplined and to take responsibility for myself and to cover my own ass. And I'm the one in control of my life, and I'm the one that's going to face the consequences. So don't let your friends bring you down, and all these sorts of ideas. He taught me to have fun, live life, do sports, and really just do whatever you want and make yourself happy as long as you're keeping your shit together, was his motto. And that's what I've done. Anyways, so my dad quit the church. We did not go back to church. Now, I was in high school and junior high and all this stuff, so I'd find myself at youth group with friends, or on ski trips with friends for the church. And I had a couple friends that I went to church to. I've been to a Catholic church, and I remember going there and being all weird because of the communion, and my friend whispered in my ear that I didn't have to do it if I didn't want to, and that's Amy Velasquez. Anyway, so I was like, thank God, I don't have to do that, because, well, it was pointless to me and ridiculous. But then I've been to a Lutheran church, which is kind of like Catholics, but a little looser. And, well, you don't have a pope standing up there, but you still got to call him Father and all that stuff, which I never could do. I never just would speak it because it was all just weird to me. But I went on youth group trips with that friend. And then, of course, I went to the First Baptist youth group with all the friends. And one thing I remember there was they did a, I don't know what to call it, like a UFC like fighting ring, okay? And the pastor got in there, and he's talking about salvation and how to get saved, and told us to close our eyes and walk down, you know, if you want to get saved. And I remember thinking, there's no way in hell I will ever do anything like that. And I never did. I've never walked down to the altar call. I sit still and I just keep my spot. And I also don't feel like I have to. So that's where I'm at on that. Or I never felt like I had to, I should say. So that was my experience in high school. And I party, I have fun, I live life. I always had a job. I always paid my bills. I was a pretty good kid. I did everything my dad asked me to do. But I also had a lot of fun. And I continued that mentality in college. I never felt guilty about a damn thing I was doing because I was just living life and having fun, not hurting anybody. And life was good for me. I did everything I wanted. I went to school. I had my job. I had my money. And I partied. And it was gravy. And then I meet my husband. And he's got the same mentality. We have fun. We travel. We ride bikes. We do all these things. And we just live life. I didn't have any guilt about if I was going to hell or any weird thing like that. So I've always had an open mind with religion. I just listened to my friends and everyone's ideas and was just like, yeah, one of those kind of people. The main thing I thought was silly was the freaking church. All the things that they had to do to get saved. I was like, I'm never going to do that. And then, anyways, I meet my husband, and he's like, all you got to do is believe in Jesus. And I was like, well, that's easy. Great. Done with that. And that was it with me on Jesus and getting saved. And he showed me things like the law of attraction. He showed me that. That was one of the first things. And so I read about that and all that. I never get obsessed with anything, any sort of religion or practice or whatever you want to call those things. But I read it. It made sense, you know. Be a positive person. What you put out comes back to you. But also that teaching can make a person go psycho because they think they control every damn thing in this world and a bunch of other stuff. I let a friend listen to it and she almost lost it. But I did not. I mean, I guess I just have a level-headed type person, but anyways. So law of attraction, he showed me these water crystal cards and how the words you say change the water. And it's pretty cool. Each card has a word on it and it shows you what the water crystal looks like. And that was cool to me. I loved all that stuff. I loved astronomy. I loved science. I loved math. And I loved learning about all those types of things and physics, and the quantum physics was coming out about that time. And this is about year 2007 when I was learning all these things. And when I met Jeremy, he was a vegan. Great. I was not a vegan. But I was always healthy. My dad taught me to be healthy. I mean, I wasn't perfectly healthy, but I always had the mentality of being healthy and staying active and taking care of your body and just not letting myself go. My dad would always preach that to me. And both my parents were athletic. We always played sports and all those kinds of things. Anyways, Jeremy tells me about veganism, blah, blah, blah. And so I did it too. And I lost my little freshman 10 that I got in college. Wasn't too bad, but it was gone. And we just focused on being healthy and traveling and having a good time. And I did my little corporate auditing job for a few years, which I hated. I don't like that lifestyle of the corporate life. Whatever. Who does? So anyways, eventually I quit that. And I get back into the restaurant world, but more into the management and catering aspect of everything. And I did that for a little bit. And then, so me and my husband are together this whole time, 5-6 years, not married, living in sin, I suppose, having a great time, whatever, didn't care. And then we start finally talking about getting married when Jeremy was 35, because he told me that he did not want to have kids or get married until he was 35 because he thought that it was end times. He told me this from the very beginning. I didn't think anything of it. I was in an end times church family. We talked about it all the time. Like my whole life we talked about end times and how it was going to go down and who it was going to be and who the Antichrist was and blah, blah, blah. And my whole family is preppers, still are. Anyway, so Jeremy's always kept me up to date on the truther stuff and end times and all that stuff ever since I met him. So I went from an end times family to not talking about it at all for about 5 years, other than through the family. I didn't really care, but my family all still did it, so I've just always been around it. And then Jeremy comes through telling me these things, and I'm like, okay, so you think it's now? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, 35. We have kids when we're 35. So when he gets to be 35, I was like, you told me we would have kids when we're 35, blah, blah, blah. So, anyways, right about the time we're arranging getting a ring and starting to get married, I get pregnant. Literally at the same time. So I get pregnant, I don't know, July-ish. And we go on one more trip to San Francisco. I think we went to Mexico. No, Mexico was before I got pregnant. I was pregnant in San Francisco. Anyways, on November 19th, 9/11 backwards, we signed the paper. We didn't invite a soul, nothing. Because, well, I don't really think it meant that much to us, that paper, because we had already been together 6 years. We had never left each other's side. And we were just together and married and living life. Anyways, we do that. We have Finley, and I start thinking that, you know, maybe we need to go to church. Aren't we supposed to do that? We've got kids now. And we were like, whatever. So we went to Jeremy's old church called Irving Bible, and we get there, and my husband sits down and says, I've heard these sermons 100 times. And so he didn't really like it. And we end up moving to Colorado to get the hell out of the South, because Jeremy had by that point, Jeremy had his, oh shoot, that was before Finley. Before Finley, we had the dream. The dream where Jeremy's neck was grabbed and I was awakened by something in the room and I was paralyzed with fear and all these things. But listen, I'm going to have to stop this because I'm getting too far into it and I've got to stop and get my milk. But I'm going to finish this starting off with Jeremy's vision a little bit before Finley.